Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The Stock Movers Report, your roundup of companies making moves in the stock market, harnessing the power of Bloomberg data.
Let's take a look at some stocks on the move today in Europe. I'm Tom McKenzie with Caroline Hepker. We're joined now by Bloomberg Markets Today editor, Morwenna Coniam. Morwenna, let's start with retail then. JD Sports attempting a comeback then in the second half.
Well, yes, I think the key thing here is it's not as bad as was feared, particularly for its US division. They gave an update today. They've said that they're expecting their full year profit to be in line with market expectations, and that actually the decline in sales in the US hasn't been as bad as people expected. And sometimes that's all you can really hope for. People have been really worried about JD Sports. It is quite exposed to the US market, a lot of involvement with Nike, but also it's one of its biggest markets. And with those tariffs that we've seen coming from the US, there's been a lot of anxiety this year. So really just coming out and saying things are kind of okay and they're going on course is being taken well by the market. The ticker JD/LN, we're seeing that stock up as much as 5.5% today, still up 4.8% right now. And that's really a good outcome, especially, on a day where consumer stocks overall aren't doing so well. The shares are actually one of the best performers on the FTSE 100 today too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that from JD Sports. Interesting. The other major story this morning, though, has been around the pressure again on the consumer in Britain. The National Grid up this morning after Ofgem's price cap changes. Why has it actually helped investors' moods? Because I don't think it will help consumers' mood.
Well, I think you've got to remember, who's paying the bills and who's getting their bills paid. And it's the utility providers who will benefit from having those higher bills allowed. I mean, of course, it is reflective of their costs being higher. And it's also going to help vulnerable homes, having the government having sort of U-turned on some of those winter fuel allowance cuts means that there is going to need to be a bit more money to support some of those homes. But it's generally sort of going down well with the market when it comes to utility firms. So, yeah, we've got National Grid shares up about 1.9% at the moment. That's NG/LN. But also other power suppliers such as SSE and water firms, Severn Trent and United Utilities, are all performing today. Outperforming the FTSE 100. And I think that's particularly interesting. We are in a very sort of risk-on day. The market is quite bullish overall, and that means that utilities usually don't perform so well because they're being seen as being these kind of reliable but not very exciting companies. So they tend to outperform when things are down and like when things are up. So actually the fact that they're outperforming today, I think, is quite significant.
I suppose that's because the industry regulator Ofgem, in its announcement today, because it gets to effectively set the price for energy, it's allowed that to go up by 2% for a typical household for electricity and gas. So I think, obviously that has buoyed a lot of the utilities. Interesting.
And Hochschild's share price, meanwhile, has plummeted, so it's under a lot of pressure. And this is after poor guidance. What are the details around this story?
Yeah, so fairly dramatic drop today from Hochschild. The shares in the precious metals miner have tumbled as much as 20%. They're still down this morning about 14%. That's HOCLN. It really comes down to that underwhelming guidance, particularly one of its gold mines in Brazil, the Mara Rosa gold mine. They saw a challenging first half due to heavy rainfall and some contractor performance issues. I think what's important to note here is that Hochschild shares, like many of its precious metal mining peers, have done really well so far this year. We've seen a lot of the market going into things like gold in particular because it's seen as being a really good sort of bet against market volatility, of which we've seen a lot of. And so, the shares were up over 40% ahead of today's update this year. So there's probably a little bit of room for some profit taking too. A little bit of negative news is going to go down really badly with the market for a company that's probably is valued so highly.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.